Hello, and welcome to Bubbles and Breakdowns, a space designed for you to show up as your beautifully imperfect self, where we dive into the good, the bad, and the bubbly. I'm Ashley.
I'm Katrina.
And I'm Lauren.
Woohoo!
Woo! Second guest.
Welcome, Lauren. So excited to have you here with Bubbles and Breakdowns. And today, guys, we're talking about the extreme importance of nervous system regulation. And we have an expert about this who is joined us today. So excited to get into that. But this is extremely important as it pertains to healing our bodies, increasing our mobility, and our overall physical and mental health. And I think we're going to learn a lot today. That's number one. But we've talked on this podcast a number of times about the challenges that maybe we've experienced heading into our 40s, especially as it pertains to our physical health and mobility, and ensuring that we can get the most bubbly moments out of our lives. If you're not feeling good, those bubbly moments are harder to get. So we want more of them, right? And we are thrilled to have this expert of holistic physical therapy join us today, Dr. Lauren DeCicco. Welcome. She came in yesterday from Florida, and we are honored to have you. I've known you for quite some time. We were discussing, I think I met you in middle school, and now it's a full circle moment of having you in my home. But I'm going to take a moment to introduce Lauren to all of you. Dr. Lauren DeCicco is a doctor of physical therapy practicing out of Boca Raton, Florida, and has over 16 years of expertise offering a comprehensive holistic physical therapy service to optimize health, wellness, and performance. I think that sounds pretty fantastic. I need this in my life.
Same.
She takes traditional rehabilitation, wellness, recovery, and performance training models and blends them with a holistic approach, which is so critically important as we continue to learn more about that. She does this by incorporating the reintegration of and regulation of the nervous system so you can reach the foundational state for optimal healing, focus, and performance. Basically, if you're not feeling well, you won't be well. And I think that that's a fundamental in so much of our lives. Now, she also does one-on-one care and specifies her treatments and tailors needs to those of the unique individual, which is fantastic, which makes it like that holistic component. And they create a care plan so that you can meet your healing and wellness performance goals with the ultimate goal. This is such a big goal, guys, of feeling fully regulated and having a resilient nervous system. I need a resilient nervous system.
I literally am trying to picture what that even feels like and I'm nervous thinking about it.
Right?
So obviously I'm not there.
So I think this is going to be really important to everybody here. We're going to talk about rewiring a little bit. We're going to talk about the mind-body connection, self-empowerment, and so that we can all reach our optimal performance. So welcome. We're so thrilled to have you.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So with that, I think, I don't know, Ashley, should we get into some basics? Because we said a lot of exciting things.
Totally.
But we want to make sure that people listening know what the heck we're talking about.
Yeah, we got to break it down a bit. So I think, why don't we just start off real basic, real general, and let's just talk about what is regulation? How do we feel regulated? What should we do? I think that's a really good place to start.
So if you look at it more from the standpoint of survival versus safety. So when
is this that fight or flight?
Yes. So the part of the nervous system that we're even talking about is the autonomic nervous system, and that controls our basic ability to survive. So, for example, if we need to eat, we're going to shift into rest and digest. If we need to activate, say we need to go to work, we need to interact, we need to perform, we're going to activate more of our fight or flight. But in a regulated nervous system, it's going to be nice and balanced. So we're going to activate when we need to, and then kind of balance back out and deactivate when we don't need to. And we should be able to flex on and off, and stay in a nice neutral window when we're doing that. Now, when we look at the survival response, when we are undergoing an excessive amount of stressors, for example, or we've experienced a trauma or multiple traumas throughout our life, our nervous system turns on and it stays activated and it's not deactivating. So then we get stuck in an excessive amount of survival. And that could be fight, flight, but it could also be functional freeze or full-blown freeze, shutdown, immobilization. And I think you'll see a lot of people tend to just sit in fight, flight, and freeze, especially women. Women will kind of coast and freeze and functional freeze and then kind of get hyperactivated and then shift back down.
So, and I think we've all heard fight or flight, right? I feel like that from the get-go, like that's exactly what I thought of. But what are some symptoms that people could be experiencing? Because if I'm thinking fight, I think I'm always on edge, right? Or I'd love to talk about that too. Like, how do people know they're stuck?
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know they're stuck. Like a lot of my clients come in and they're like, I'm not stressed, but then they exhibit all of the symptoms that would tell me that they've been in excessive amounts of being stuck on or shut down for a really, really long period of time. But when you're underneath a chronic load all of the time, that becomes your new normal. So you're really not in tune anymore with what this looks like. And then what starts to happen is we start having chronic pain, chronic inflammation, tissue tension, body parts that hurt in multiple body parts. It's not just like, oh, it's just my knee that I hurt back in 8th grade and it still bothers me. It's like both knees, both shoulders, my neck, my back. It's like
full body.
Yeah. So anybody that comes in and has multiple body parts, I'm like, all right, well, I know that your system's been in some sort of excessive survival for a long period of time. So if you want to start fine tuning your awareness to what it looks like and feels like, because it's really a body sensation. These messages are coming into our nervous system as stimulus that's being received by our body and being interpreted then by our brain. So being irritable, so being on, more activated, more fight or flight, and being stuck there in excessive states of what we can also call sympathetic nervous system states. That would be more like on fire. Okay.
Yeah.
So hypervigilant, irritable, sensitive to light, noise, jumpy.
Were you with me yesterday? Because you just described exactly.
I was literally going to say, this is my day today.
No, really. I mean, so first of all, I love this bringing our awareness into our bodies, right? It's this like, is your heart beating faster? Maybe you are irritable. Maybe it's just the way that you're talking, the way that you're thinking, the way you're moving. But I also want to talk about something really important that you highlighted, and I don't want people to miss this, is that you talked about like the switch being stuck on. And what came to my mind, and maybe you could help us understand this a little bit, is the difference between good stress, like that performance stress that you were talking about, rising to meet the occasion.
Like motivation, right?
Yeah. And then how does that affect you when it does get stuck on, when you should be maybe in that rest and digest phase? You know, tell us about maybe physiologically what you've learned that is compelling for why that stress can be very, you know, good in certain places, but if it doesn't turn off, like what's happening in our bodies that's making us start to feel these things?
So stress is actually not bad. Stress is actually good for us. It's necessary because we do need to be able to flex on. We can't just be like coasting through life all like chill and calm and whatever, because, and I work with a lot of high performers. So they are under high stress loads and have to be able to access motivation, focus, flow, creativity, and get projects done, but they're on all the time. So even just creating some moments within their day-to-day where they flex off is where you create flexibility and resiliency into the nervous system. It's not that we're experiencing stress or that stress is in our life. It's the ability to flex off and recover when we are not with that stressor anymore. But a lot of people aren't flexing back off and balancing back out to neutral in between their stressors, or they've overloaded themselves with their schedules and their responsibilities or whatever so much and did not integrate some little pockets of recovery within there. And it could be a minute. A minute can make a difference
To reset your
to recover and reset, to bring yourself into what we call parasympathetic, which is the opposite of sympathetic.
Can you break sympathetic and parasympathetic down for people so that people can know what that could look like or feel like?
Right. So sympathetic is what we're referring to as fight or flight.
Okay.
So activating on, preparing for response to an interpreted stressor or stimulus. Parasympathetic is deactivating. It's counteracting the sympathetic so that we can create balance within our nervous system, because we can't be on all the time. So the parasympathetic kicks on. When that activates, it's actually deactivating what the sympathetic does to counteract it, basically.
So to just take that further, so just kind of thinking about this. So this is something our body should naturally do, correct?
Yes.
Like, so we should naturally, okay, we're going to be on. I got to get my kids ready for school. I have to do all this. I have to work. At the end of the day, I should be able to say, okay, I'm parasympathetic now and I'm chilling, like you're saying, right? And I'm just kind of coasting. But once you do it for so long and you don't take that minute, right, we get stuck.
So it shouldn't be the end of the day, first of all.
Lesson learned, guys. We need breaks during the day.
Yes.
No, moment to moment, within the moment.
Ooh, that's a challenge.
So if you're interacting with people, kids, whatever, say we're taking our kids to school, that, okay, what part of that should we really be activated in? And what part of that should we just be back in our neutral baseline?
Right.
But a lot of us, and I know this because I've done
There we go.
the school drop off in the morning. We are on we're probably on the night before. Like, oh my gosh, I got to get up. I got to get
Totally.
up before the kids.
Sunday scaries,
and then
right? Yeah.
I didn't pack the lunches and I got to be up before them. So we're already activated before there's even a stimulus.
Right.
So we're creating that activation based off of what we learned in history of like, oh, if I didn't pack the snacks on time, so then this chaos happened, and it became like a wired history in us. So now we're like activating from the moment that we wake up or we go to bed the night before, and then we're staying activated until we drop those kids off at school. And then a lot of us are not even coming out of that because we're already like, now we got to move on with the next thing or whatever. But really, if you look at that activity, what part do you actually have to be activated in?
Right.
In
Just
reality.
just the doing part.
In relationship to the responsibility or the stressor or the, like, what part of that needs to be, like, even waking your kids up, you don't need to be activated. Right.
And you know what? Hearing you even say, like, when you like think you know something and then someone says it and you're like, it's that light bulb moment.
Are you having one?
This is how people have burnout.
Yeah, you're on all the time.
All the time.
So burnout comes, that's that parasympathetic where our system is shutting off sympathetic, but it's doing it excessively because you just revved for so high for so long. It's actually an instinctual way to protect yourself even more. Your system is like, you can't keep doing this. So I'm going to shut you down. And it could come in illness. It could come in depression. It could come in, I'm not motivated. People will look at it like it's self-sabotage even. So all of those types of experiences or behaviors sit in that shutdown part of your survival response. So burnout is there, feeling stuck. Like if you're like, oh, I know I really want to do these things to do this new project or have this goal, but I just like can't get myself to do it.
No motivation, yeah.
No motivation. So you cannot access focus, flow, creativity, growth, expansion, motivation, connection, even social engagement, spirituality, if you're stuck in those excessive states of survival. We literally cannot connect to it from those different states.
And that's just wild because socially, culturally, we are such a work hard, play hard, right?
And it's like we're rewarded for how
Hard.
fast we go,
We
how
push.
hard we go.
Yes.
And how we're resilient. We talk about this a lot. Where
Yeah,
it's like,
and we're ruining ourselves.
Yeah, what price?
So I truly, now understanding what I understand about this, I believe that hustle culture comes from wounding and survival.
So like
Jinxies. We're both wounded. No secrets.
I think
tell us more.
culturally.
Yeah, culturally.
I'd love to hear your thoughts on that a little more. Can you expand?
So when you look at some of the big players in the business world, for example, or performance world, they are like, go strong, go hard, get up at 4 a.m., never stop. You're weak if you stop, whatever. It is a protective survival mechanism to just never stop and keep pushing and doing, because if you stop, like the fear of stopping
Right.
Is failure.
It's fear that's driving it. So your motivation to do things should not always be fear-based. Anything fear-based that's driving you is really coming out of survival. So again, if you're hustling and doing all the time because you're scared if you stop, that is a more of a wounded response.
So let's
or behavior.
I love the way that you explain that, and I'm going to give an example that I think is relevant for a lot of our listeners. Is that it's almost like when you're sitting on the couch and you know you have a to-do list. By the way, like, spoiler alert, to-do lists don't go away. They don't just magically disappear. You could have,
Wouldn't it be nice though?
but like, it's perpetual, especially if you're an achiever personality that loves to put the check mark by it, i.e. me. But point being is that it's that feeling of like sitting on the couch, right, Lauren, where you can't sit there and like you're almost immediately feeling guilt for sitting there, and you're thinking of all the things that you should do, and then you're actually robbing yourself of rest because you're already, in a way, disaster planning for how much more you have to do.
Right. Like you're sitting, but are you actually recovering?
Yeah,
right?
and you're not.
Well, it takes me back to like vacations. Sometimes it takes me 5 days to enjoy it, right? Like you have to like get back to like, oh, I don't have to worry about anything, right? Or I do, but it's like, am I having a pina colada or a daiquiri today, right? You know, versus you're on making, and I think there's something so important to get out of your daily to-do list too, where it's like, I'm not going to make breakfast today. I'm to get out of your element, because you have to regulate, right? Like what are good steps for us to do that?
Well, a lot of it is you have to be with yourself to even know where you're at. So you have to understand like what capacity do you have for the day, and that's going to change day to day. Even in the most regulated person, you know, I practice this. I've practiced this for a very long time, and I generally am very regulated. I even have to do self-regulation on a daily routine to make sure that I maintain that state for how I have to show up for my kids, for my clients, and even myself. But there's some days where I'm like, I don't have the capacity, the room in my bucket to make everybody food today. So one, you have to have self-awareness. So you have to be able to be with yourself, sit with yourself, experience the messages that your body is telling you to even understand where you're at for the day.
Yeah.
You can do self-regulate if you wake up for the day and you're like, I'm not feeling it. Doesn't mean that's the way that the day has to go, but you can recognize where you're at in your body, in your nervous system, practice some self-regulation to shift the state of your nervous system. So some activation of safety and soothing within your system, in your body, and then see where your new capacity is. See what it is that you have access to now, because that might change within the moment. So say you're like, I'm just not, I don't have it in me to do this.
Can't do it.
You self-regulate first and bring yourself into a different state of your nervous system. All of a sudden, now you can access motivation and the drive. So now maybe you're like, oh, okay, breakfast isn't so bad.
Right.
But if some days it's still not enough, and you have to give yourself some self-compassion that like, I just don't have this in me. If I do this one more thing,
Right.
I'm going to lose it. I'm going to
mind.
lose it, or my bucket's going to be overflowing, and then I'm going to be burned out.
So-
And then I'm going to be no use to anybody.
So in your practice, you really talk about the vagus nerve a lot. And I think as you're discussing ways to regulate yourself, okay, checking in, knowing even what's going on, because you can't regulate if you don't even know what's going on, right? But then you also talk about this vagus nerve. And I think about this as almost like a super highway to activating the part that we need to have open and ready to calm ourselves. How does that relate to this? And like, how do you use this vagus nerve stimulation, and what other methods do you employ to get people's body in a state of regulation?
So say you were a client coming in to me. The first thing that I'm going to do with you, and most of my clients, I'm going to say 99% of people in general are more dysregulated than regulated. And there's obviously varying scales of this.
So we're normal.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Normal, but struggling.
Yes. Unless this is the work that you've done already. So most people that understand this and know how to self-regulate, or, be aware of where they're at, or really be embodied with themselves, have either been through some sort of crazy experience of suffering where they crashed out and they then had to go do the trauma work or the whatever, or they're in the field or whatever. Like my own experiences, yeah, I was at rock bottom. So I had to learn how to shift that. And so I had a different relationship with my world and my environment and my stressors.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm working with somebody, I already know, usually by the phone call, where they're at in their nervous system.
Tell us about that. What are the cues you're looking for that tells you where they're at?
Well, their symptoms.
Okay.
So a lot of people will call me because they're like, oh, I've had neck pain forever and I just can't get rid of it. And then I'm like, well, obviously if you're suffering from pain, your body's going to be in some sort of state of survival already. But then they start telling me other things like the same descriptors that I'm telling you, like I'm always overloaded. I work all the time. So their lifestyle tells me a lot. How they're communicating tells me a lot as well. So if you're communicating in a certain way that's not, necessarily like centered and present and trusting and connected, I'm already reading you that where you're at in your nervous system. Now, where I kind of understand the scale of like, is it more fight flight? Is it more shutdown, freeze, immobilization? I get that feel from them when they come into their session with me, or when I see them face to face, or even virtually. If their posturing tells me a lot. Eye contact tells you a lot as well. If they're using humor, if they're squirming around, like things like that.
Like you got to tell.
Actually, might be a defense mechanism.
Break it down. Break it down.
Yeah. So the humor definitely can be a defense mechanism, but
I know. I'm just gonna take a sip of my anxiety coffee.
But posture tells you a lot. Posture, when people are like kind of slumped down, sunken into themselves, does that tell you
making yourself small?
Yeah. I'm more shut down.
Oh God, I'm slumped and making jokes.
That's
fine.
If people are like sitting and they're kind of like squirming and like
looking
around, and like you can feel that off of somebody. So our nervous systems are actually talking to each other. They're co-regulating. So they're attuning and adjusting and feeling each other. So I will actually use my nervous system to help them come to regulation. So when I work with people, I always make sure I'm super regulated.
It's so funny you're saying this because I haven't seen you for maybe decades at this point. Like, whatever. It's been a long life. But being with you even just briefly this morning, you have that ability, and it's I could feel it. So as you were saying that, I can see exactly what you're describing and how that could translate into your clients then feeling a little calmer. It's like the candor of your voice. It's the positioning of your body, how you're looking in their eyes, how you're giving reaffirming head nods, and all of these very comforting cues as a human that I think we're taking in so much stimulus, right? Throughout our lives, constantly we're ingesting, but our brain is interpreting these things without us even knowing.
Right.
And that helps your clients, right? Yeah. Your patients.
So safety. So as humans, facial expressions, for example, tone of voice, warmth in the voice, eye contact, signal safety to the other person. So, and obviously, if people are okay with like being closer to them or touch, some people, depending on their history, you have to be very cautious with that. But using a regulated nervous system to help a dysregulated nervous system is the first line of defense with regulation. Now, we don't always have access to another human or even an animal, like a safe animal, like a dog or a cat or something like that. We can use those nervous systems to co-regulate as well. But the key is that whoever we're trying to regulate to has to have the dominant nervous system.
Right.
So you could have a dysregulated person take over the room if those other nervous systems haven't really practiced regulation or don't keep that as their neutral centered state.
I see this with our children.
Yeah, energy is...
And my
it's
husband.
wild.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like when you were explaining earlier, and again, just trying to digest all of this information and make use of it in practical ways, is I thought about the kids drop off and how I've made a very cognizant effort to really chill out in the car ride and like just have fun listening to music. And I have found my enjoyment of that whole process has skyrocketed because I can finally regulate myself. Versus in the past, I'd be worried like, oh, they dropped a toy. Oh, what are they doing back there? Do they need something? Are they bored? Da, 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 da. And like that was a frantic energy that I was putting out. And then they would be grumpy. And now I smile dropping them off. I don't get sad because I know that then that translates into them being sad, right? So it's just so important that, like, as a human being, what you're saying on a very fundamental level is that we relate to human beings, and we relate to them not only in a physical touch way, but in a energetic touch way. And so that's so interesting that someone with an off vibration in a space can kind of tilt the vibration of everybody else because we're picking up on it, right? Mm-hmm. Like, it's kind of like how Debbie Downer, right, all of a sudden just like sucks the air out of the room. Mm-hmm. Or you have that really fun person that shows up at your party and you're like, oh, it was kind of lame until Brad showed up. You know what I mean? Not to call him out.
Not
he is
Brad.
Fun. No,
and I think
on a very practical level, this is what we're talking about.
And
we're
drawing from that, kind of, we mentioned earlier, connection. How you said, 2020, there was such a lack of this connection that I'm sure we're seeing pain from it now in people, or we're seeing.
Yeah. It was a collective trauma.
Right? We're seeing all this thing that people need this healing. But let's go back to this nerve.
The vagus nerve.
Yes, the vagus nerve. I'd love to kind of expand on that because this is something I've never heard of. And I'm just thinking for myself, like, I'm taking all these nuggets from you of, no, you don't get to rest at the end of the day. You can rest after drop off for a minute. And, like, you know what I mean? Like, all these compounding things, I'm trying to think, how can I make my day the best and my nervous system to be, we always talk about being the happiest, best self. We want to connect with people. We want to do all these things. So tell me about this nerve. I need to know.
Yeah, we want the snackable way.
Yes.
Right?
Of like, what else can we do?
So when we talk about like connection, for example, safety in our body, we can activate this nerve and it will create that sensation in our body where we start to signal safety. And when we signal safety, then we come into a regulated, regulated, present, central part of our nervous system where then everything else is regulated around us and much more in control around us. The vagus nerve is a cranial nerve, meaning it comes from the brain stem. It travels out both sides of your ears by that ear hole. It's very superficial in the skin of your ear as well. So even just lightly brushing the skin of your ear, you can activate that nerve.
Like inside your ear or outside?
Like the outer ear. Okay. You can go inside your ear a little bit as well. You can
Is this why I like cleaning my ears so much?
Or I think of little kids that like rub their ears sometimes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Think safety and soothing.
Right.
For your body and the sensation that your body wants to experience to transition into that regulated state.
So if you are stuck, this is the physical way to snap you.
Right. So it should be an internal physiological response that our body automatically does for us. But when you're under a chronically loaded stress system all the time, it starts to deactivate. The nerve starts to deactivate, and so does the parasympathetic in balancing us out. So we want to externally give it cues again and stimulus in the right way. So we want to stimulate safety. We do that directly through the vagus nerve. So that nerve, it doesn't just stop around the ear. It actually comes down both sides of the neck, sits behind your chest bone, and goes into your abdomen. So it controls a lot of things, your digestion, your heart rate, your blood pressure. But there's Stephen Porges developed the polyvagal theory. And this is a really, really great way to describe physiologically what this nerve does for us. But the nerve is also responsible for a lot of our social connection, our attachment as well. So they have studied the nerve, and they've studied people with like attachment disorders, for example, and how your early attachment was first formed when you were newborn. Plays a role in the development of your vagus nerve.
So polyvagal meaning multiple vagal, and how that translates into different aspects of how you experience life.
How you heal and how all the way to how you show up in the world socially and connect socially. So actually experiencing connection helps to activate your vagus nerve and vice versa. Activating your vagus nerve can help you access more connection or the desire to connect with other people.
So this is why, Ashley, when we have these podcasts together and we have these moments of connections, you and I, we are calmer afterwards.
We are.
You know? And I have to say, guys, I am loving this conversation, and I'm just going to throw it out. maybe we take this as our part 1 today, and we've spent a lot of time, I think, just unpacking some fundamentals at this point about regulation. We can then move into the next episode, focusing more on how this relates to physical repair.
Yes.
And taking it that step further of how creating this regulated nerve system, not just in our day-to-day lives, but when we're seeking repair physically and we're dealing with trauma or pain, how this can play an integral and fundamental role.
I love that. Well, and with that, I think, Dr. Lauren, thank you so much for this discussion today.
Yes.
It's been awesome. And remember, after every breakdown,
don't forget the bubbles, and catch us for part 2 coming up here in a week, guys, where Dr. Lauren DeCicco is going to join us for another conversation as it relates to regulation and the healing process.
Yes.
Thank
you so much. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. Bye.